Today, let's talk about some of the worst weapons in Elden Ring. Now, the thing about this game, and really the Dark Souls games before it, is that if you really want to, you can do something with pretty much every weapon. Sometimes that's half the fun. It's rare that you get a piece of equipment that's completely useless. In the right hands, basically anything can be a deadly weapon in these games, and that's especially true in Elden Ring. With the new Ashes of War system, it's a cinch to swap out affinities for weapons and make them stronger or give them better skills, so nearly every weapon in this game can be pretty powerful if you take the time to customize it. So at the end of the day, worst weapon is really just a matter of opinion, and that's what this list is. It's our opinions here. If you disagree, that's okay. That's what this is all about. Let's get started off with number 10. The Flail. Here's a gimmick weapon that is about as bare bones as it gets. It's found really early in the game in a chariot in the Gatefront ruins. This weapon has pretty weak strength and dexterity scaling and pretty low standard damage, and a pretty pathetic skill called Spinning Chain. You just spin the flail around in front of you. The range is not good, and it's not that strong and offers you little protection. It's just, I mean, look at it. It's not that impressive, like, at all. Pretty much like every other flail in the game, fills the same role, but better, making the regular old flail kind of a joke. Of course, you can always swap out the ashes for something better and upgrade this thing to improve its scaling, but, you know, at the end of the day, you've got a pretty slow weapon that just doesn't play to a very many build strengths. It's hardly the worst weapon ever, but it just doesn't really serve a function to us. It's a weapon that's just there, and that's it. Next, over at number 9, the Short Spear. Now this weapon, which seems to be primarily used by the chumpiest enemies in the game, is another starter weapon that's quickly outclassed by basically everything else. Compared to the standard spear, this weapon just doesn't really measure up in any way. It's shorter, it's weaker, and while the requirements to wield a normal spear are higher than trying to use this thing, it's not going to take you long to hit those requirements. Basically, what makes this weapon so bad is right there in the name. It's a spear that's short. The only reason you'd want a spear is to hit enemies from further away, so having a short spear just kind of totally defeats that purpose. Like the flail, you can of course put on some better ashes and get this weapon a slightly more usable state, but there's little reason to do so, and there are so many other spears that fill the same role but are just flat out better than this one. Next, over at number 8, let's talk about the Briar Great Shield, because we've been talking about early game weapons so far, so we're going to jump way further into the game to the Shaded Castle. This weapon is dropped by the boss of that area and has one big glaring flaw to it. It's a great shield that doesn't block all physical damage. Most regular shields manage to block all damage, but this gigantic tower shield that weighs 9.5 in equipment load, nah, it can only manage 82%. Sure, like if you wanted to use it as a weapon, it's got a pretty strong passive bleed effect, but who actually does use a shield as a weapon? Okay, this is Elden Ring in a Souls game. I know people definitely do out there, but for most people, they're just gonna use a sword or something to cause bleed buildup, not their shield. For us, and a lot of players out there, a shield with anything less than 100% physical defense might as well not exist, because we're not using it here. I mean, especially with this weapon coming so late in the game, well after players have already found tons of shields that give them full protection and more benefits. You know, some people are probably using it, but we know we certainly are not. Next, over at number 7, the torch. Now, like a shield, this is another thing you can use as a weapon if you really want to, but its main purpose lies elsewhere. The only reason most people will want one of these things is to illuminate dark areas, and it is really good for that, at least. As a weapon, though, it's pretty subpar. Yeah, it might be useful for doing some fire damage early in the game, but, you know, a little bit of fire and barely any physical damage isn't going to cut it for long. But let's be honest here. Nobody is using this as their primary weapon. As a way to light up caves, it's great, or at least until you earn a lantern. With a proper lantern, you really have no use for the torch anymore, so it's not a great weapon, and at certain points, it stops being a useful tool. Now, we're glad the torch is in the game because it still is kind of fun to use in specific use cases and examples, but it really serves not a lot of purpose, and for that, we're gonna still count it as one of the worst. Now over at number 6, the Serpent Hunter. Now this is a weapon that's just great for one thing. It's fighting one boss and pretty much bad for everything else. It's got a skill that works great against that boss, but use it anywhere else and nothing happens. You can't even swap out the ashes for anything else, so there's little reason to ever use it outside of the boss fight. Like a lot of Souls games, this is a thing. It's just another cool weapon in that one moment, but in every other instance, it's just a total piece of junk. Next over at number 5, okay, enough fan complaints. Let's talk about just some early game crap. The forked hatchet, which is a weird looking little hand axe used by the dungeon imps, just isn't very good. It's another weapon that trades power for some kind of blood loss buildup effect, but with so many weapons that cause bleeding, there's really no reason to use this over something else that's more effective. Well, unless you want to run around as like an imp, I guess. There's not a whole lot to say about this one that we haven't already said about previous weapons. It's just an early game thing that gets quickly outclassed in pretty much every way and doesn't do much to compensate for that. You know, other than it looking pretty weird, I feel like this one just ends up sitting in everybody's inventory. Now over at number 4, the Staff of the Guilty. This is a weird one. If you're using a staff, most players are going to gravitate towards something that scales with intelligence because staffs are primarily for casting sorceries. Incantations usually use faith and are cast using seals. Sorceries usually use intelligence and are cast using staffs. That's just how it works in this game. But there's one and only one staff that doesn't scale with intelligence at all. The Staff of the Guilty. I guess, for lore reasons, only scales with strength and faith, with nothing towards intelligence. This thing doesn't cast incantations. You can still only use it to cast sorceries, so you still need to have the stat requirements to cast those spells, but it won't boost their power at all. Instead, it'll give you a boost to certain thorn sorceries, and also causes blood loss buildup, something it seems like half the weapons in the game do, and better than this one does. It also boosts specific thorn sorceries, ones that don't have an intelligence requirement, so I guess if you really want to use those very specific spells, it's good for that. But this thing is so niche, it's hard to call it a good weapon at all, especially when so many other staves give you more substantial boosts for your spell casting. Now down to number 3, the Soldier's Crossbow. There's so much that's bad about this weapon. For one, it's worse than any other crossbow in the game. It just straight up does less damage. Its stat requirements are low, but are only a tiny bit lower than the next best crossbow in the game, so that doesn't mean much. On top of that, it's honestly just kind of hard to get. The only way to grab one of these things is to kill the crossbowman guarding Stormvale Castle, and the chances that they'll actually drop one is really damn small. There's just much easier to find and straight up better crossbows you can get, even right from the start of the game, making this weapon pretty useless. It's rare, it's weaker than everything else, and there's nothing special about it whatsoever. It's just an all-around, not very good crossbow. If it's the only one you manage to find, then yeah, it's fine, but once you get something better, then there's just no reason to use the Soldier's Crossbow ever again. Throw it in the garbage. Down to number 2, what's worse than a torch? It's a torch on a pole. Yeah, the torch pole. You can't even use this thing like a standard torch. It doesn't let you lift it over your head like a normal torch, so it's basically just a mediocre spear that does a little fire damage. It does look a little cool, but the pathetic damage output and the fact that it really has no utility as a torch sink this weapon to be near the very bottom of this list. We just found ourselves having no use for this thing at all. Now down to number 1, you guessed it, the rickety shield. Here it is. It's a weapon that's more of a joke than an actual piece of equipment. It's got a pathetic 50% guard for physical attacks, and it's even worse for everything else. It's tiny, it gives you barely any additional poise, its attack even sucks. I mean, it's called a rickety shield, so it's no surprise that this thing stinks, but here's the description in-game, which really says it all. A creaky old wooden shield, circular in shape, roughly reinforced with vines or some such. There are countless other shields available of better make. This piece of scrap isn't worth the effort of equipping. Yeah, the game literally says that this thing isn't worth equipping. In a game where pretty much everything is at least a little viable, this shield stands head and shoulders above everything else as being basically useless. Of course, I'm sure there are some brave players out there who use this thing just for the bragging rights, or there is some super duper crazy hidden secret to be unlocked. But an intentionally useless weapon is still a useless weapon, and they don't get much worse worse than this rickety shield. It's basically this game's version of the wooden shield from Bloodborne, and just about as useless. Those are 10 of what we thought are some of the worst weapons in Elden Ring. I'm sure there's going to be lots of debates and arguing about this one. We didn't even talk about some of the spicier stuff, but let us know in the comments what you think. Let us know what your least favorite weapon is, and you might as well throw in your favorite weapon too. That could be pretty fun. So let us know. If you had fun here, clicking the like button's all you got to do. It really helps us out. And if you're new, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell because we put out videos every single day. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.